Jonesy, one of Fortnite's most iconic skins, but what most people didn't know is that he's almost identical to Fat Thor from Avengers Endgame. Oh wait, you already knew that. But in case you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, Thor basically stops taking care of himself after Thanos wins and eventually becomes fat and lazy. Fun fact, Thor actually plays Fortnite with his friends in this exact scene in the movie, so the dots are starting to line up here, Epic Games. But yeah, I mean, look at the similarities, it's pretty obvious. It's almost like Fortnite gets inspired by pop culture and there's way more references, so how about we dive into the next one and show you what inspired Leviathan. Leviathan is a really cool looking Fortnite skin and is honestly a really unique and well-made design, but no great design is without inspiration because Leviathan is actually a cool nod to a character from Megamind. In Megamind, his sidekick is a fish named Minion, and do you see it? Of course, Minion is a lot cuter than Leviathan, but I still want to get that skin. It hasn't been in the shop since Season 4, Epic, what's the holdup? But next up, we have Codename Elf, and you wouldn't think that Codename Elf would actually be from a movie. I mean, he's just a basic elf, right? Well, you'd be wrong. He's actually inspired by Buddy from the movie Elf. If you've seen the movie, which by the way is really good, Buddy's elf costume is the exact same as the one on the Codename Elf skin. Just putting them side by side, you can see the similarities. In fact, the hat is identical in everything. But it's not all just about movies, sometimes Epic likes to borrow from other video games too, talking about Omega and Arc. In the Season 4 Battle Pass, we were introduced to Omega, who is clearly just some kind of space-themed superhero, or villain. Anyway, one of his later styles is actually directly inspired by Genji from Overwatch. If you compare the masks, they look almost exactly the same, and he's not the only one. The Arc skin is even more blatant. I mean, sure, Omega and Genji share a mask, but let's just compare Arc and Mercy side by side. Yeah, I think this one is way more on the nose. And of course, we have to talk about the most ripped off and popular skin in Fortnite eternity, the Reaper skin. Reaper is probably one of the most famous Fortnite skins inspired by a movie. When he first came out, everyone immediately could tell who he was. John Wick. And that's basically when all the memes started flooding in with John Wick. But what's even crazier is a year later, the real John Wick came along. So it's kind of weird. I still think that the Reaper is the better skin, let's be honest. But hey, things get a little less obvious as we move on to Marauder. We've all seen and heard of Marauder. He's probably even more popular than Codename Elf. But unlike Elf, he's not inspired by a Christmas movie. Instead, Marauder is actually based on the gingerbread man from Shrek. But it seems like Epic can't get enough of Thor because he appears twice on this list with BATTLEHAWK. Now, BATTLEHAWK's inspiration isn't as obvious as the other skins out there, but he definitely has some taken from Thor and Infinity War. If you put them side by side, you can see that they have some similarities, but obviously he's not walking around in Thor's own outfit. But something that is way more than just a passing resemblance, though, is TARANA. She's an interesting one in this season's Battle Pass and fits the primal theme that has taken over the island. But there's just something about her that is so familiar, and if you played Zelda Breath of the Wild, you'll probably feel it too. In Breath of the Wild, one of the shrine quests actually leads you to finding a set of barbarian armor, and if you take a look at this set and compare it to Tarana's own armor, you can see it pretty quickly. And it's not a coincidence either. Season 6 is full of references to Breath of the Wild, and this is just one of them. But it gets even cooler with Tech Ops. It's been a long time since we last got a Splinter Cell game, but the wait for a new one might have just gotten a little easier. Epic put their own version of Sam Fisher in Fortnite, and it's the Tech Ops skin. Tech Ops has been around for over 2 years, but it's still more recent than any version of Sam Fisher, so technically this is all we have for now. But I'm more a fan of Rustlord. The OG noob skin back in Chapter 1, a lot of people loved him for some reason. Reaper wasn't the only Season 3 Battle Pass skin to be inspired by a film, because Rustlord had him completely beat. If you haven't figured it out by now, he's Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, and just like Reaper, the real version of the skin eventually came to the game later on. But I think everyone's waiting for Epic to make a crossover version of Glimmer. Like Arc and Mercy, Glimmer is one of the more obvious skins that Epic have made. Just from looking at her, most people already could see that she's inspired by Elsa from Frozen. It's the same blue outfit, same blonde hair, and they're even both princesses. The only thing is that, well, Glimmer has bullet pouches, and I don't really see Elsa running around with a scar anytime soon. Although while Elsa probably won't be in our Fortnite lockers, we already could buy the inspiration for Rogue Agent. One of the first ever starter packs, and because of that, he was kind of a basic skin. But one thing stood out about this guy, and it's that he looks like a dumbed down version of Master Chief. And that's because he is. Luckily for the actual Halo fans, though, Master Chief did come to the shop, but we had to use Rogue Agent for a while. Although a more surprising skin is actually Calamity. You might think that Calamity was just an original cowgirl skin that Epic made. Aside from certain physics that we won't mention, she was a pretty ordinary Fortnite skin. Well, she actually resembles someone that no one's really talking about. In her earlier style, she's just a regular cowgirl, but as you upgrade her, she eventually wears an outfit that's very similar to Van Helsing. And if you think that's a stretch, then here's a loading screen of Calamity literally going after a vampire. It's a neat detail that almost nobody noticed before. And you could also say the same thing about Deadfire. It seems they are both inspired by Van Van Helsing. But from being inspired to just directly copying, we gotta talk about Sledgehammer. A skin that pretty much goes under the radar all the time. He was a Battle Pass skin in Season 5, but a lot of people forgot about him. Except for fans of Rainbow Six Siege, apparently. Probably asking why, and that's because he's a copy-paste of BLACKBEARD from the game. I mean, take a quick comparison, you could barely find any differences. Some of the skins in Fortnite are based on other things, but Sledgehammer is as close to a copy and pasting as it gets. But next up we have Valor, and we've had side superheroes like Thor and Star-Lord inspire skins, but a way more famous superhero was the basis for the Valor skin. You could find her in Season 4's Battle Pass, which was mostly superhero themed, and if you haven't guessed it yet, she's directly inspired by Wonder Woman. The metal armor, the headband, the gauntlets, it's all there, but surely everyone could see Wonder Woman and Valor. Something that almost no one knows about though is SLEUTH. He always seemed like a cool 1940s detective outfit, and while that isn't wrong, he's much more than that. If you've seen the movie Chinatown, then you might remember the main character, Jake. He's a private investigator too, and has an insane resemblance to the SLEUTH skin, down to the nose bandage. I mean, no surprise that classic movies like Chinatown get buried in Fortnite, especially with Donald Mustard's love for them. And that brings us to Bandolier. With Donnie Mustard and other Fortnite developers loving classic movies and TV shows, that love also extends to the A-Team, especially Mr. T. The Bandolier skin is a classic Fortnite skin, but it is clearly inspired by Mr. T and his character in the A-Team, and I don't blame him. It's a great show. Except people might have picked up on this one, but they definitely wouldn't have known about Wukong. Most people didn't know the Wukong skin actually has a bit of a backstory with it. It's based on a mythical Chinese character called the Sun Wukong, and while the skin was definitely inspired by that, it also took some ideas from other games. For example, League of Legends and Smite both had their own Wukong skins, and you could definitely see how Fortnite kind of merged a ton of different inspirations together. It's kind of cool. But so is the Omega Purple skin. Now, we already showed you how Omega was clearly inspired by Genji from Overwatch, but a different version of Omega can be worn, the purple variant, and it really reminds me of Black Panther, especially when you put them side by side. A lot of people actually used to wear the purple Omega skin in order to roleplay as Black Panther. Lucky for them, there's a real skin now, but you know, people had to resort to this guy for years. And speaking of oddly specific purple Overwatch characters, we have Raven. Now, Raven is an absolute classic Fortnite outfit, but he's not as original as he might seem. There's two games out there that Epic Games might have taken inspiration from, and you just have to see it to believe it. In Paragon, a character named Revenant exists, and he has the exact same purple eyes, kinda crow-like. And then in Overwatch, Reaper has multiple variants that look exactly like Raven. Except things get kinda creepy when we talk about Nighthair. Okay, now when I first heard about this one, I thought it was kind of a stretch, but I'll cover it anyway. A lot of people think that the Nighthair skin is actually based on Frank from Donnie Darko. They have the exact same eyes, a few other similarities, that's about it. And I was this close to marking it as a coincidence, probably like you're thinking right now. But then I went digging further, and it turns out in the Portuguese version of the game, Nighthair is literally called, wait for it, Darko. Gotta say, pretty much confirmed at this point, but it gets even crazier with Arachne. And just when you thought that Arc was the most obvious Overwatch ripoff, then Arachne appears. Anyone who's ever played or even heard of Overwatch has probably seen Widowmaker, and all you have to do is compare with Arachne, you could already see what's going on here. Epic knew exactly what they were doing with this, and it doesn't take much to know that they straight up put Widowmaker in Fortnite with no shame. But moving on, obviously we have to talk about Hybrid. Nowadays, we have a Deadpool skin in Fortnite that we can use whenever we want, but much like Omega and Valor, we had to make do with what we had back in Chapter 1. How hard the times were back then. So, if you wanted to roleplay as Deadpool back then most people would actually use the Hybrid skin. And while clearly he's a ninja, there's no denying that he could pass off as a Fortnite version of Deadpool, you know, from a distance. But guys, make sure you watch until the end. We only have 2 spots left. Obviously, Skull Trooper's next. I could totally argue that Skull Trooper may be one of Fortnite's most famous skins, but even he has his flaws. If you've seen The Karate Kid, you probably remember the Halloween party scene. And well, in this scene, someone's dressed as a skeleton. I don't care what anyone says, that is literally Skull Trooper through and through. But it goes even deeper than that, because with the new glow-in-the-dark variants that were added a year later, Epic took even more inspiration from Breath of the Wild. The glow-in-the-dark versions are almost exactly like the Radiant armor set from the game. But now for our final skin, the Good Doctor. A lot of Fortnite skins from movies pretend they are original, but with the new Good Doctor skin that came out last year, it not only admits it's based on a Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, but that's like the point of it. Anyone who's read the book or watched the movies knows that this is obviously Jekyll and Hyde, and the built-in emote that lets you switch between them makes it so much better. It was a really good skin. I'm kind of annoyed it was only available for a few days, but thanks so much for watching, guys. Click on screen right now to check out our next video. I'll see you guys later.